Okay, hello everyone. This is Tooclevermafia, your host of the Tooclevermafia podcast. Welcome to my Mafians. Welcome, AJ, over in the sound booth. Thank you for another lovely intro. And just hope everyone is doing great out there. And we're trying to bring you new content every single week. We got a really good one for you today. We've got our toys episode coming right up. And AJ has been working hard over in the sound booth with all of the new tech that he's been getting for the show. And he has presented me with a new opening, a new intro, if you will. I like the sound that we have. I like the live intro. AJ wanted to, since we have connectivity issues getting our microphone set up in his booth, we are trying to get everything going for AJ, but he wants us all to hear the new intro together. AJ, you want us to put it out there, and I'll hear it for the first time live on the show here, and let all our Mafians hear at the same time. Let's see what you have it ready. Okay, so AJ is going to hit the play button, and we're gonna see the new intro and see. We'll get some feedback, AJ, and see what folks think over on the YouTubes, but. Let's give it a whirl, AJ. Go ahead, hit the play button, AJ. Let's see what you got.
Hi, folks. It's time for another episode of the Tooclevermafia podcast.
What?
Hope you are doing great. I'm AJ.
What is that?
The guy in the sound booth. Now I present to you the host of the show, Clever Mafia. Here we go.
What was that, AJ? What was that? Did you made that up yourself? That definitely wasn't your voice. It sounded like Mr. Roboto. Yeah. What? Oh, okay. Well, all right. I don't know if we're going to be using that again. No, I don't know. That did not sound what I was hoping for. It seemed very, very weak. Very weak. No, you want to? Okay. Let's play it one more time, and I'll really listen. Hold on. Okay, cue it up one more time, AJ. I'll give you another chance. Let me I didn't give it a fair enough chance here. Okay, beat's okay.
Hi, folks. It's time for another episode of the Tooclevermafia
No,
podcast.
I don't like it.
Hope you are doing great. I'm AJ, the guy in the sound booth.
We know that.
Now I present to you the host of the show, Clever Mafia.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, no, not. I don't know if I'm digging that, AJ. I don't know. That sounds a little bit crazy, right? Okay, well, anyway, folks, let's dive right into our old ad copy segment. We need a jingle for that, AJ. We need a jingle getting us into our old ad copy segment. Why don't you put your efforts into that for next week, because it seems to be a popular segment, and we're doing it every week. So, but today's old ad copy is brought to you by Pan Am. Wow, Pan Am. How old do you think the show is, AJ? Pan Am, yeah. Well, little fact, Pan Am was around since 1927 till roughly, I believe it was 1991 or so, and at one point they were the largest international air carrier in the U.S. at one point, yeah. And then eventually, 91 or so, I think they just ran out of money. They ran out of money. You remember the other airline? There was a TWA. I don't know if you remember that, AJ, but TWA was also a big airline. And these airlines, back in late 80s and 90s, some of them just didn't stick around for one reason or another. But that's not really Pan Am. I don't know. I've heard of them, but how about we do another one, AJ? We got another one here? Oh, okay, here's one. Here's how about Borders bookstores? Yeah, Borders, kind of like a Barnes and Nobles, but they were a bookstore. Yeah, we have Borders books. They were from 1971, I believe. Is it 18? Yeah, I don't know. AJ's handwriting is pretty sloppy here. But eventually they were in close, they were working, they sold to Kmart here. According to this, in 1992, they sold to Kmart. Didn't last too long, though, and then in 2011, they went bankrupt, which happens to a lot of our old ad copy. That's why we're not getting any revenue anymore. And They were bankrupted mostly, they're saying here, by Amazon. Amazon put them out of business. Well, I mean, Amazon was a huge book distributor at one point, right? They still do. They do a lot of digital books. They have that Kindle. I like Amazon. We purchased a lot of our studio equipment and this. I mean, you really can't get it much. There's no other places you can go. You know, there is no Joe's Wire shop down in town anymore. Yeah, you need a wire, or you need something to connect. You got to go down and pick it up yourself. But so that is our old ad copy today. Usually we go into a little more detail. Did you know Barnes and Noble? I don't know how good they're doing. Barnes and Noble. You know, a lot of those two name places don't last too long, like Sears and Roebuck, Levi's and Strauss. Well, Levi's and Strauss has been around a while, but you don't really call. You know, is Lee the same as Levi's and Strauss? We are going off the way. We're going off the rails here. Let's stay on target here. Oh, Sears and Roebuck. Yeah, Sears and Roebuck, and we were trying to work with them, but so anyway, we got a great show for you today, folks. Hopefully, if you want to vote on AJ's intro, but we're going to stick with the normal everyday music from now on, and really keep this show moving for you. Okay, we're going to roll right into our 1950s toys right after this small break. Be right back. Well, thank you, AJ. Welcome back, Mafians. This is your host, Clever Mafia. You are listening to the Tooclevermafia podcast, and we are going to bring you today what we promised. It's our old toys episode. We're going to review our top 5 toys and maybe a little bit of a bonus that we've picked generally from the 1950s. Now, little disclaimer before we start. There are some that kind of span over as far as when they were invented to when they were produced and sold massively. But anyway, generally the 1950s, right, AJ? We kind of did our research on this a little bit and gonna go through this the best we can. So before any comments on the YouTubes, when you say, hey, this toy's been around for 1,000 years, well, say, hey, listen, they sold it in the 50s, so that's what we're going for. So if we're wrong, fact check us if you will. We're not presenting this as an exact science, right, AJ? So here we go. We're going to start with number 1, and if those of you who haven't heard of any of these toys, by the way, you really need to get on the YouTubes, or just go to a toy store, head over to Walmart, whatever you want. But these are very popular, so everybody should have heard of every single one of these. All right, you ready, AJ? Should we do a drum roll? Oh, okay. So here we go. Number 1. Well, these are in no particular order, by the way. They are, our top 5. Doesn't necessarily mean number 1 is our number 1 choice. Okay, just disclaimer. Making sure we cover all of our bases here. So number 1 is Play-Doh. Yes, Play-Doh. Everybody knows Play-Doh. Good old modeling compound made of mostly water, salt, flour, a little bit of fragrance from time to time, some color, which made it very tasty, but it was non-toxic, so it was okay to eat when you were a kid. But Play-Doh actually has its roots back in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was made in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was used originally in the 1930s. Now remember my little disclaimer, but it was originally used in the 1930s as a wallpaper cleaner, really. And but then in the 1950s, hence the topic of our conversation today, in the 1950s, it was the product was redone and then marketed to the Cincinnati schools. In the mid 1950s, late 50s, I guess you could say, it was advertised on TV and famous kids shows. And in 2003, kind of a jump there in years, but in 2003, the Play-Doh was eventually named by the toy industry as added to a list they created called the Century List of the top toys, and Play-Doh was definitely on there. So Play-Doh, everybody knows Play-Doh. It's been around forever. Eventually, later on, though, AJ's little extra info. In the mid 60s, I think it was 64, it was finally exported to Britain, France, and Italy, and then it became an international product. And do you ever have any Play-Doh, AJ? Did you ever play with them? Did you ever eat the Play-Doh? Because it would explain it. No, okay, all right. Play-Doh originally, when I was a kid, I remember Play-Doh came in a cardboard container, and it had a metal bottom, right? It had a metal bottom, and it was kind of wrapped in a cardboard. It kind of reminds me of, you ever have those Pillsbury biscuits? Yeah, kind of like how those are, except you didn't peel it open and it popped. But yeah, it had a metal bottom, and then it was eventually replaced in the 80s with a plastic container. I would imagine it was cheaper to make back then, and the metal bottoms did rust. You know, they did rust, especially if you took the Play-Doh outside and you got it wet, it would rust. And I'm sure that wasn't healthy, right? Especially if you were eating the Play-Doh. But yeah, so our first 1950s toy is Play-Doh. So definitely comment if you had some Play-Doh, what colors you had. You had a Play-Doh factory, all that kind of stuff over on the YouTubes or social media, Twitter, Facebook. We are available on all of them. Instagram, post some pictures of us, share some pictures of Play-Doh if you have it, or if you had any famous pictures of Play-Doh models that you created. But that is our Play-Doh. That is definitely our Play-Doh, our number one on the list, right? All right, AJ, here comes number two. Number two, you ready? Number two is the Magic 8 Ball. Everybody remember the Magic 8 Ball? Well, and I do. It was, looked like an 8 ball from, if you play the game billiards or pool, they call it. Yeah, the Magic 8 Ball. So in the 1950s, it was a very popular little toy. It had a liquid in it, and a little thing floated inside of it, and it had, you'd ask it a yes or no question. It was a little fortune-telling, or a fortune teller, I guess, device if you were seeking some advice. Or it was invented by a gentleman named Al Carter. I might have known Al Carter back in the 50s. I'm not sure, really. But invented by Al Carter, but it was originally inspired by his mother, because his mother was a clairvoyant, right? She was a clairvoyant from also Cincinnati, same as Play-Doh. Play-Doh. I know, not Play-Doh. That's a completely different thing, but Play-Doh. So, yeah, but his mother was also from Cincinnati, and she was believed that it was kind of created as almost a crystal ball at first, like a incandescent, iridescent crystal ball, and then eventually they came up with the idea of the Magic 8 Ball, and it is said that design was pulled from a gag in a Three Stooges film. You remember the Three Stooges? Was it Larry, Moe, and Curly? And I think there was a Shemp. Was a Shemp there at one point? Yeah, I was a big fan of the Three Stooges films, but they had the shorts, and then they did some movies as well. But apparently that design was in a movie in the Three Stooges film from the 1940s, and that is where they kind of came up with that 8 ball design. And did you know there was only 20 answers in the Magic 8 Ball? No. I would have thought less, but there was 20 answers. But yeah, you ask it a yes or no question. I was asking if I'd get off my if I wasn't going to be punished any. I had one. I owned a Magic 8 Ball, and I would I'd get grounded, and I'd be like, hey, am I going to be off my ground and my punishment anytime soon? And I'd shake the ball, and the ball would tell me, try again later. So not very helpful for me, I guess. But yeah, that was Magic 8 Ball. Yeah, very popular toy back in the 50s. So we're going to move on to the next one on our list. The next one on our list is going to be the Frisbee. You remember the Frisbee? You ever play with a Frisbee there, AJ? Of course, right? Now they give them away everywhere. You go to a festival, or sometimes our town has a special day, and there's all type of merchants there trying to advertise their wares and such. And most of them give away Frisbees. Banks, they don't give away toasters anymore. They give away Frisbees. So you get a little Frisbee disc. But back in 1957, based on the data in our crack research team, back in 1957, they used to be called a flying disc or just a disc. I do remember them calling it just a disc, but And, humans have been tossing discs forever, of any kind. We're skipping rocks and stones and all that kind of stuff. But as the story goes, now this goes back a little bit further than 1957, about 20 years before. But as the story goes, after one Thanksgiving meal in 1937, Walt Morrison and his future wife, he became his future wife after he became rich and invented this toy. But anyway, his future wife, Lucy, they started tossing a popcorn can lid, right? You know, the lid, metal lid with the, popcorn used to come in big, it still does around the holidays, you might see somebody. It came in a big metal tin. But anyway, they took the lid and they started tossing it, right? And, I'd like to know about that. How did that start, right? The one after Thanksgiving, who was throwing it at who and for what reason? Was he mad there was no gravy for the potatoes, or was she mad that he didn't say thank you and went to sleep, or didn't help clean up after the meal? I don't know. Anyway, this might have been 1937, so it might have been a little different, but I'd like to know more about that story, what happened. But anyway, so Walt and his wife, Lucy, or soon-to-be wife, future wife, Lucy, started tossing this popcorn lid, right? And they soon discovered that there was a market for this, because as the story goes, they were tossing this pan at a Thanksgiving dinner, and then later on, I guess they lived in LA or California in the area, but they were at an LA beach, and then they were tossing this popcorn lid, which, from what I understand, they stopped using the popcorn lid, and then because it broke or dented, and then they ended up going to buy a sheet pan almost, right? For like a cake pan. And they were tossing it at the beach. And someone offered them 25 cents for the cake pan because it looked so much fun and they wanted to play. And they were tossing, and they said, yeah, sure. Hey, you give me a quarter. I only paid a nickel. You can have this cake pan. What the heck do I need it for, right? But then they started to realize that, a light bulb went off in Walt and Lucille's head, and said, hey, if we can sell this for a quarter and we only buy it for a nickel, we're going to make this a business of ours, right? That is a smart business decision. If we can sell something for that buy something, it's almost 5 times the profit. You definitely, your cost factor, you're buying it for a nickel, you're selling it for a quarter, and boom, hence Frisbee was born, right? Then eventually, I guess it got manufactured in plastic, and don't know if there was actually a patent on it. I'm sure there might have been somewhere along the line, but so that's the story I know about the Frisbee, right? So we're going to move on to number 4, and number 4, we're not going to, hopefully everybody knows about number 4, but number 4 was the Slinky. Now again, the Slinky, metal toy, compression, kind of springy, unless you unraveled it and then it didn't work, or if you got it tangled up, forget about it. Or stretched out too far, it was useless after that. But it was invented actually in the early 1940s, not the 50s, AJ. It was by a guy named Rich James, but he invented it. Basically, he worked, from what I understand, in the boatyard, and then he knew people in that area, and then went to a machine shop in that area. This was in Philadelphia, and he made a few, and then went over to Gimbel's department store. Remember Gimbel's? Gimbel's was a department store. They had toys, they had all kinds of stuff. But so they went over to Gimbel's, demoed this in the store, and basically the Slinky was born. Later on, they had Slinky dogs, which was my grandkids watched. I saw the Slinky dog in the Toy Story movie, and they had Slinky Worm in the 1960s, and they were originally $1. He originally sold, Rich James sold them for $1 each, but the price for steel back in the 40s, and you had the wars going on at the time. Back in the price of steel was very expensive, so people ended up paying a lot more for James and his design. But James, and eventually his wife Betty, took over the company that they created. This was 40s and then through the 50s, and Betty took over the company. They created a company. They sold an unbelievable amount of Slinkies. I think from 1945 through 2005, the number I came up with was 300 million Slinkies. That's almost enough for every, well, it's about 25, 35 million short, but almost enough for one Slinky for everybody in the United States. That is a crazy amount of Slinkies to sell. I mean, if you can come up with any product that you can sell one to everyone in the country, in the U.S., you've made it big. And really, it's one item. It's there's no moving parts. It's one piece. It's like the Pet Rock, but better, you know. So, but yeah, they were originally made in a machine. He originally made them for $1, and he sold them. He wrapped them in a yellow paper towel, and he sold them. And then on and on, it progressed, and they just sold one after another, and then I think it was 1998 they sold the Slinky to a company called I think it was Poof Products is what I have here, and they made, I mean, even if they sold each one for $1 and they sold 300 million, that's a lot of coin. You know, and I've seen them for $20. I've seen them for $9, and then they had the Slinky dog and the Slinky worm, and then all this other stuff. So, wow, if I could have invented the Slinky, AJ, maybe I could pay you more, but I didn't. So, anyway, yeah. So we're gonna move on here to the number 5 on our list, the Pogo Stick. The Pogo Stick. So the Pogo Stick is kind of a unique story because the spring in the Pogo Stick, right, was patented back in 1891, way before my 1950s guide here. But then in 1920, Max Polig and Ernest Gottschall came up with, they used that spring, and then they made something which they called the spring end hopping stilt, right? Wow, that name was way too long, even for back then, and whoever their marketing or PR person was, they really needed to get somebody new there, but, out that person and get somebody a little bit more creative. But anyway, so they realized the name was too long. 1920s, people had fun with it. It was just basically a spring on a stick, and you kind of held onto the stick, and you bounced around until the stick, if you fell off of it, the stick went through your shoulder. It really wasn't a safe toy, but it was fun while it lasted until somebody got hurt, right? But they did, the rumor has it is they took someone said, listen, your name is too long. So they took the first 2 letters of each of their last names, Polig and Gottschall, and then they came up with the Pogo Stick, right? But that was in the 30s and 40s, but then in 1957, a gentleman by the name of George Hansberg patented the 2-handed pogo design because they said, listen, you got a vertical grip with a handle on it, and you're killing people, or you fall on it, you knock out your teeth, or it destroys your chin, or it breaks your jaw. It was dangerous. It was a dangerous toy. Even, in the 50s, there were some dangerous toys, but that was really the top one. So he patented this design in 55. Kind of changing the one before it that had the vertical handle on it. And I remember the ones with the vertical handle. It was fun, but it was almost like a medieval weapon of sorts, So if I was going to do a siege on a city, in medieval times, I would have brought the old school pogo sticks with the vertical handle, because if you're bouncing on it, and then, it was bad. It was dangerous. But anyway, you'll see if you can Google a picture of it. They're pretty crazy, the old ones. But so then in 1953, a movie came out finally. That there was a movie called The Wild Ones, where the characters in the movie are seen hopping around, and I think the movie had it was like the gangs back then, but they're hopping around on the back on the pogo stick, and boom, everybody wanted a pogo stick. So. And they're still around. They're different devices. They've got pogo balls. They got all these different variations that they kind of invented it. But the pogo stick has come a long way. So that's our top 5. And we do have an honorable mention, though. And this was submitted by a user over on our Twitter. They DM'd us, which we usually don't read our DMs because we were told not to. We told it's not a good thing to read our DMs. But we're going to start reading them because there's actually a lot of good comments. It's some not so great comments, mostly about AJ and the sound booth. But there's a lot of great people out there that listen to our show, and we want to give as much attention to the folks that are really involved in our creative process. So the honorable mention that came up quite a few times actually is the hula hoop. Now, the hula hoop was a very popular toy in the 50s. It was manufactured originally by a company called Whammo. They made a plastic hula hoop. Now, the hula hoop is a crazy story because before the plastic hula hoop was created, it could have been for thousands of years possibly, but for quite some time, kids, going back to ancient times, there's proof, and then there's been, people have found the relics, but they used to use dried willow and grapevines and dried grass and create these hoops and play with them. So for thousands of years, they played with something called a hoop or a hula hoop or a grass hoop. I don't know what you called it back then, but then when the company called Whammo said, listen, we're going to make a plastic hoop. We're gonna make a plastic, and that it took off. Because really, you make something of a dried willow, it's not going to last too long. Maybe you're lucky to get through the summer with it, and if you have an allergy or allergic to, ragweed or pollen or something, I don't know, grass. Some people are allergic to grass, and yes, AJ, the grass that grows in the ground, regular grass. But the plastic hoop, what came out when it was made by this company called Whammo, out I think they were in California, and they sold almost 100 million in 2 years, from I think it was 58, 59 kind of timeline, 1958, 1959. They sold 100 million, and at one point they were making 50,000 hula hoops per day. 50,000. Now, if you think about 50s, and a lot of people, you think about the 50s, for folks that weren't around in the 50s, you think of the movies, you look at the movie culture, like the movie Grease, they're all hula hooping everywhere and wearing the crazy clothes, and you think of John Travolta and his leather jacket, type of thing. But the hula hoop was big back then. In any movie, most likely, that you watch that references the 50s culture, that wasn't necessarily, some were made in the 50s, but you think hula hoop. So hula hoop deserves an honorable mention on our list, but because of it was probably invented 1,000 years before. I give you a 15, 20-year range, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, but it can't really make the top five. Can't really make the top five. Did you ever have a hula hoop, AJ? Yeah. Well, a hula hoop, I can hula hoop like no one's business. You should see me hula hoop. I can just spin that hula hoop around, get those old hips going. No, I don't have replacement hips yet, AJ, but I can still rock a hula hoop. You know what I'd like to see, AJ? Can you rock a pogo stick? Because that's some talent. Can I rock? A pogo stick, I don't know. I haven't done a pogo stick in quite some time. But a hula hoop, I probably can rock. I can probably rock. Yeah. That's my new word, rock. You like that? Okay. Well, that's our list, folks. Definitely drop us a line over on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or on Facebook if you have any other toys. This has been really fun getting the information and doing the research on these toys. And this is, most of you, we did a poll, and that's how we came up with a lot of these toys. And these are the top 5 and 6 that you made us aware of, that you wanted on the list. So there they are, and there they are, presented to you in a Too Clever fashion. Definitely check us out on all the social medias, chat about it. Then Tooclevermafia, TOOCLEVER, on all the social platforms, or you can visit us on our website at www.tooclevermafia.com, and we can definitely do another list if you want to send us some more information. We'd be happy to go over it with you. And this has been fun. It brings back a lot of memories. Everything from Play-Doh, the Magic 8 Ball. I asked a lot of questions to that Magic 8 Ball. And, so drop us a line, and we will be right back after this break, my Mafians. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you once again, AJ, for another great intro. Hope everyone had a great time today. We hope everyone's top 5 50s toy made it into our review. We rounded it up. I would say probably about 75, maybe 80% of the votes. I haven't done a exact mathematical total, but about 80% of the votes that came in, we were one of the 5 or 6 toys that we spoke about. So hope everyone got to learn something new about their favorite 50s or 50s-ish toys. And AJ, did you have a favorite? The Play-Doh? Yeah, the Play-Doh is kind of a basic, right? You seem like a kid that may have eaten a lot of Play-Doh when you were young, even though it was non-toxic and probably didn't taste too well. But no, you never really ate the Play-Doh. Well, good for you. Good for you. Glad you had the understanding to realize it wasn't a real food, even though you made it in your little, they had the little factory, right? You told me about that. Yeah, you had a little factory that made the little Play-Doh look like a little food sources. But anyway, make sure you're visiting us over at the website, www.tooclevermafia.com, and checking out all our social medias, and on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, obviously the YouTube, and AJ's setting up over on Discord. A lot of automation stuff happening in the Discord stuff. So definitely like and subscribe if you feel our content is agreeable and enjoy listening to us. Right? We definitely we got some behind the scenes footage over on the YouTube if you want to check out some videos. But before I leave everyone, also don't forget Teespring. Can't forget that. AJ just reminded me we have all of our Two Clever Mafia merchandise. Not merchandise. Or merch, if you know what it means. But our t-shirts, our mugs. There's some new things coming out. I think a fanny pack. I don't know. They're always trying to get me to put my mug on, my mug. Put my face on some other mug. Or some other product they're selling over there. But I think they got a fanny pack now and all that kind of stuff. And I can't keep up with all the new products over on Teespring at Tooclevermafia, TOO Clever Mafia. So here's something though, and I occasionally come across things, whether I'm watching television or reading or listening to other people's podcasts, and I occasionally come across things that just they strike me as interesting, and as probably most of us do. And this came up. It was a politician, and I'm not sure if you know who it was. You drop me a line because I don't remember who it was, and I don't necessarily watch any one news channel or read any one news article. So I kind of bounce around because I want to get a good taste of everything that's going on from all sides. But this came up as one of those answers from a politician that was a good way. You know, politicians tend to avoid answers for questions, right? You ask them a question, and if they don't want to answer it, they're going to give you whatever answer. Like a news person might say, hey, is this or that? And even give them a yes or no answer. And at the end of it, you won't know what they said. They don't answer the questions, and you don't know whatever point they tried to get out was one. But here is how I wrote it down, because here is how they worded it. The question that was asked doesn't necessarily matter because the answer is a very generic question. But the reporter was trying to, I believe it was a television interview, and the reporter was trying to get a kind of narrow this politician down to a yes or no question. And then, it didn't matter what the question was. But so the reporter answers the politician then comes back with an answer. Now, now remember, they wanted a yes or no. They wanted, hey, what's your answer? So the politician comes back and says, and I'm not going to even try to do the voice because I don't even remember. I just wrote the notes down, and I probably should write better notes, AJ. But it says, so the answer is, well, it's a mosaic, this politician says, with a lot of pieces in it. We have built it up, and we will continue to do that. We will deepen it, and God knows, which they always throw faith into it. God knows we have a long way to go. I don't think that was a black and white question. I say it's what your priorities are. Now, when I heard this and I heard the answer, I'm like, what? First of all, in that answer, as I wrote it down, and I rewound the DVR, Mrs. Mafia has the DVR, so a digital video recorder, so I can rewind all of the, well, mostly so she can record her shows, but we have that option. So I rewound it and I wrote this down, and I said, what a lovely way to not answer a question. I like the first part where he says, honestly, I don't remember if it was a he or she, but what they say, it's a mosaic with a lot of pieces in it. That alone is gold. If somebody asks you a question and you answer it, it's a mosaic with a lot of pieces in it. If you're at work, someone asks you a question and you don't know, it's a great way just to answer a question without giving an answer, right? If you just say, hey, if your boss says to you, hey, can you work, can you work late tonight? And then you answer it, hey, it's a mosaic. It's a mosaic. That question is a mosaic with a lot of pieces in it. Imagine that answer to anybody else other than a political person adding that answer to a reporter or whatnot. And, imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine, let's say you're a clerk in a food store and you're ringing people up and they're like, hey, could you tell me how much this broccoli is per pound? There was 2 signs over there, but I'm not sure which one. And then the circular might say another price, or it was where the avocado should be. And then the cashier answers back, yes, well, Mr. Mafia, well, they wouldn't know my name, but yes, Mr. Customer, but you're really dealing with a mosaic with a lot of pieces in it. So I don't know. This just kind of caught me off and off guard, and I said, this is crazy. And I'm going to start listening now more to politicians and how they answer but don't answer the questions, and keeping notes, because it's amazing, and it's a real skill. I don't know if they're taught that. I would imagine. I've never really been into any type of debate classes or anything along those lines, but I would imagine that is a real skill. So I'll leave you with that little tidbit. Don't forget to listen to us on we're available on a lot of different podcast apps: Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Breaker, Radio Public, Overcast. There's another one here I don't remember the other one, but you get the hint. We're pretty much everywhere. We're on all the podcast networks. And so I think, if you're interested in donating to the show or helping the show out, you can always head over to Patreon, or also Tooclevermafia over there, T-O-Clever Mafia, not Cleaver. It's C-L-E-V-E-R Mafia, Tooclevermafia. Mafia. I think next week, AJ, we're going to do a little bit of a segment on some favorite movies. What do you know about that? You know a lot about movies, AJ? Well, I have a top few. Depends on which era, but I've got favorite movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That sounds like a radio station advertisement. The 2000s, probably 2010s if we break it down that way, and then up to now, 2020. But maybe we'll do a list. Should we do a list, or should we just focus on one movie? Well, we could do the list and then focus on the movie. Hey, head over to all my Mafians out there. Head over to YouTube. Comment what your favorite movies are, and then maybe we can do a breakdown of some of them and, what we know about them, find out what they were interesting about, and we could chat about them and compile a list. Maybe we'll do that next week. I think that'll be fun. Yeah, I think that'll be good times. But everyone, thank you again for listening to our little podcast here as we continue to, what was that? Oh, no, AJ is telling me that his favorite movie was Die Hard with a Vengeance. I like that movie too. That was with Bruce Willis, right? Yeah, maybe we'll feature that movie. But now he's telling me Dumb and Dumber. Well, I like that. Actually, that was pretty funny, but that's kind of a different classification of a movie than Die Hard, right? But if we're going to do that, we probably got to do a top 5. Oh, yeah, we'll do a top 5 list. Why not? Now he's telling me TV shows. Well, we have to decide movies or TV shows, or we could just do television altogether. I don't know. All right, Mafians, we're not going to start a new episode right now. We're going to get into, this will get in too deep. But head over to YouTube, definitely comment, drop us a tweet. I was going to say Twitter. Drop us a tweet, or go to Facebook, or drop your favorite movie picture over on our Instagram. Share it with us, and next week we will set up something fun for our top movies in some way, shape, or form. So everyone have a great weekend. I know we're heading into big time summer, and the 4th of July holiday. Yeah, the Independence Day here in the United States is coming up very soon, and you got your fireworks ready to go? You do? Okay. All right. Well, let's get out of here. We're holding everybody up today, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. I don't know when we'll be back on, probably right after the holiday, and hope everyone stays safe, stay healthy, and that is all I have to say about that, my Mafians. Bye-bye for now.